Well, welcome to the We Over Me podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Miller, joined by teammate CEO DeMoine Adams and our co-founder, Dr. Tom Osborne. Over the course of the next 6 months, we'll be diving deep into teammates' strengths-based approach and to mentoring a team of leaders. So thank you guys for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
I think the thing I love most about being able to really talk to you guys is just like the amount of leadership in this room today. I mean, DeMoine, how long have you been the CEO now?
A year and 3 months.
Oh my gosh, what was it like getting that call from Tom saying, "Hey, you want to be the CEO of Teammates?"
It was pretty humbling. Been with teammates since 2012, and when this opportunity presented itself to serve in a more servant leadership role and continue this legacy that was started 30 years ago, it was humbling, but also very excited. Work with a great team, and for someone to believe in me, similar to when I got recruited to play for the Huskers, it was an amazing feeling, and it still is.
And Tom, this organization is your baby. You've founded this program 31 years ago. How does it feel to look back and see the wonderful legacy you've put together?
Well, I wouldn't say it's my baby, but I was certainly around at the start. And I guess, one of our primary core values is commitment to youth. And that's kind of what coaching is all about. And so worked with young people most of my life. And interestingly enough, from the time that I started coaching in 1962, I began to see a lot of changes impacting our young people. And family structure changed a lot, more dysfunction. And so instead of dealing with X's and O's almost all the time, majority of my time was spending with dealing with people and sometimes putting out brush fires. And so the idea for Teammates really came from my wife, Nancy. She had seen a segment of 60 Minutes, television program. And on that program, there was an elderly gentleman who'd made some money in the business world. And he was asked to come back and speak at his elementary school. And it was actually an 8th grade graduation. And he was kind of shocked when he went back because when he had gone to school there, it was in an affluent area, and most of the kids went on to college, and the demographics had changed. The poverty level was obvious. And so he asked the principal, he said, "How many of these kids do you think will go on to college?" And the principal said, "Well, if we're lucky, maybe one." And so that shocked him. And so he when he got up to give his speech, he told the kids, he said, "If you guys will stay out of trouble and graduate from high school, I'll pay your way to college." And Nancy said, "You think we could do something like that?" Well, coaches weren't paid those days like they are now. So I wasn't convinced I could put an elementary school through college. So I said, "Well, I'll see what I can do." So I got in front of our football team one day, and I said, "How many guys be willing to serve as a mentor to a 7th or 8th grade boy in the Lincoln Public Schools?" I thought it'd be good for the young men, but probably also good for our players to serve somebody else, offer some stability. And so 22 hands went up, and we didn't know much about what we were doing. We matched them up. We just had to spend some time with them once a week. And you can bring them to practice if you want to, but just make sure you spend some time with them and support them and are good role models. And so that's how it started. And like with so many things, things evolve, and you had no idea at the time it started what it might eventually turn into.
Well, and I'm glad too you brought up our core value of commitment to youth, because that's what we're talking about today. And when I think of commitment to youth, I think of us as promise keepers and in Teammates. As a coach, what did it mean to you to be a promise keeper to your players?
Well, I think the main thing you want to do is build trust, and trust primarily comes from telling the truth and keeping promises. And so if you, when you recruit them, if you don't mislead them by saying, well, we think you're going to come in and start right away. That was a pretty familiar line that a lot of times is used by coaches. And we try not to ever make that promise, because a young guy would be disillusioned if he came in and all of a sudden he found he was on the third team. And so you tell them the truth. It's going to be competitive. It's not going to be easy. And then whatever you say, you want to make sure you follow through, that you keep promises. And so it's really those two things that have to do with integrity. And important. The reason that's important is that when there's integrity, there will be trust. And so if there's a high level of trust between coaches, players, and the whole organization, then you have a lot more commitment, and you have people that follow through. So those are things that we try to make important in coaching, and hopefully have carried that over into teammates.
Oh, I would definitely say so. And I think also that trust kind of goes into the safety aspect of our core values too. DeMoine, talk about what do we do at Teammates to really make sure that's a core value here?
Well, one of the things that makes us unique is that we're school-based. All our mentoring takes place at the school during the school day. All communication takes place at the school. Since 1991, we've served over 45,000 students. And so far, we've had 0 incidents where a child has reported being harmed by an adult.
Knock on wood.
So we feel that, when someone who serves as a mentor meets with their mentee at the school, we feel that that's the safest place for their relationship to be built, which makes us different, makes us unique, but our model works. And the school puts a lot of trust in us. The parents or their guardian puts a lot of trust in us as well to provide that additional caring adult for another young person. And we just want to be a program that's really committed to students. It's all about students, nothing else. Everything that we do every day, we want to be all about helping students reach their full potential through mentoring in the safest way possible.
And that's so true. I think too, I really want to remind everybody, all 3 of us in this room are mentors. Like, we abide by these rules ourselves as leaders in the organization too. Like, I've had a mentee for 7 years. I have 2. DeMoine, how many mentees have you had?
I've helped 4 students graduate from high school.
It's amazing. And what about you, Tom?
I've had 6, and one of them for 13 years, and a couple for maybe 7 or 8. And currently I'm starting out with another one that's just been a few months. And I have a post-secondary mentee. Somebody's graduated from high school. I've been with him for 7 years now, and he's doing well. Every relationship has been different, and I've learned something from every one of those mentees. Hopefully they've learned something from me. But so often our mentors will say, I think I get as much or more out of this than my mentee does. And I've always been puzzled by that, because you're giving, as a mentor, you're giving your time, and sometimes it's not convenient to go see somebody at a school. But I think what mentors, as I boil it down, what mentors are saying that when you serve somebody else who really can't do anything for you in return, it adds a dimension of meaning and purpose to your life. And so mentors say, they come back to work and they generally feel more energized. They feel better about things. They're always really enjoy seeing the fact that the mentee is glad to see them, and that the mentee believes in them and trusts them. And so I think that is it's been a real good, satisfying relationship both ways.
Oh, I can totally agree, at least for my two gals who I mentor. I read a study actually from, I believe it was from Stanford, and they said that whenever you give back to somebody else or sacrifice something, whether it be your time or maybe you give back in a monetary way, you get those feelings, those happy feelings come to you, and those endorphins release in your brain, and they give you that really healthy, glowing feeling just by giving back to somebody. And I think that's so true with mentoring. And when you talk about purpose, especially, like you feel a pride in what you do. And you even did that as a congressman. I really want to share. Like you were a mentor as a congressman, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a little bit unusual because people are probably right when they think congressmen don't work very hard. First, the way it was scheduled, we'd fly into Washington sometime on Monday, and usually come back on a Thursday night or Friday. And so I was mentoring a young guy over at Lincoln High School, and I would see him either before I got on the plane on Monday or when I got off the plane on Friday. And which is pushing it a little bit because then I'd get in my car and drive out to the third district all weekend, but made it work. And I think it was a good relationship. And young guy did graduate from high school and went on to Wayne and played some football, and then later joined the military. But I've kind of stayed in touch with him, and he's done well.
That's amazing. I mean, in Des Moines, you're all over the place. I feel like you're always on the road traveling to our schools. Nobody can say that they're too busy for this.
Well, they say when you find what you love to do, it's not really work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're serving 191 school districts, close to 10,000 youth, which means that we're serving close to 10,000 mentors. And our motto is to be there. And I think it's extremely important to make sure that all of the local programs that we serve across the state of Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, and Wyoming feel connected to this bigger picture, this overall mission, particularly our commitment to youth. And I love it. Every single day to be able to get out and build those relationships and help coordinators and mentors and board members to understand how important those relationships are in the community, and the relationship between the community and the school district. That's what Teammates is all about. I mean, we are building community. We are helping students reach their full potential. And there's no greater feeling than to watch this ripple effect of students graduate from high school and then circle back and either become a mentor. And we've had a handful of mentees that have worked for Teammates, and that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I think we have over 100 mentors who were mentees, and then we have a handful or so who work at the central office or have. That actually goes into my next core value for you, Tom: integrity and trust. When you think of, we talked about trust and integrity with the students, but what about with the school districts? What did that mean to you to really be in the schools, and what kind of trust do they have to have with us as an organization?
Well, I think we've engaged in a partnership with the schools, and so we don't have to build a building. we meet in a school building, and that's already there. And the schools provide a building coordinator. Every school building where Teammates is present, there's somebody. It may be a secretary, it may be a guidance counselor who helps make the matches because they know something about the kids. And then we try to make sure that they meet with the prospective mentor, and you try to make sure that there's some common interest, that there's you're not going to have somebody who's only interested in music paired up with somebody who's only interested in wrestling or something like that. So you want to make sure you have good matches, and they're in a better position to make that decision than someone from outside. And so it's cost effective. And so we're 1/4 the average cost per match on a national basis. I think the average mentoring program costs about $1,650 per match per year, and teammates is about $450. And a lot of that is because of the partnership with the schools. And as Des Moines mentioned, the safety factor is huge. And because in every mentoring relationship, there's other people around, and they find a room to meet, maybe a library, maybe in the dining area, and so it's a very safe environment, and so those things have been real pluses. But I think the reason that we're in the schools is because the schools see the benefit, and they realize that attendance improves, grades improve, graduation rates improve. So just last year, our on-time graduation rate was 98%, and consistently over the last 6, 7, 8 years, it's been 95% or better. And of course, the national average, I think, is 87%, and so they appreciate those graduation rates. And then one other thing is that we find in about 85% of our matches that discipline referrals, antisocial behavior decreases, fewer trips to the principal's office, less classroom disruption, and on and on. So most everybody wins in that type of partnership.
Oh yeah, and I think the thing that is really fun in the schools, specifically in our more rural communities, is that in a lot of the rural communities, we may be the only mentoring program available to a lot of those students. And the cool part about being in the schools is that in mostly rural communities, the school is the hub of the town. So you really see that like hometown pride and that commitment. I mean, Des Moines, you see it all the time when you visit schools, I'm sure.
Yeah, just walking in, seeing that banner with teammates mentoring of Hershey or teammates mentoring of Superior. It really gives that sense of pride, and it brings people together. Going back to integrity and trust, we are doing what we say we're going to do. I think that's important for the school to see our commitment. It's important for our mentors when they go through training. And for anyone to be a part of teammates, they have to go through a new mentor training and receive ongoing training. So they continue to be committed. They understand our safety, but most importantly, that integrity and trust. We want students to look forward to seeing their mentor. We want relationships to be built. We want students to reach their full potential. And then hopefully that ripple effect of them seeing the impact of that mentor, seeing a community step up in ways that takes the pressure off of parents and teachers. There's, as I mentioned, no greater feeling than going to all of our local programs, regardless of their size, regardless of their location, regardless of the state. Being a part of teammates is something special.
It's so fun. Conference might be one of my favorite things of the year, not just because I help plan it, but also because it's just so much fun to see people from Omaha or Lincoln also interacting with people from South Dakota and Wyoming and towns of like 100 to 700 people. And then you have programs like Hershey, for instance, where they have like 100 matches in a town of 700 people. It's really amazing to see that in action. It's so cool. But I also think it speaks to our inclusion core value too, is that we invite all students to join our program. Des Moines, talk a little bit about how our students are nominated for the program and why that's so special to our program.
So there are 3 ways that a student can be a part of teammates. One, they can self-nominate themselves. Maybe they have someone like me come and they hear me talk about teammates at the school assembly. And they can raise their hand, they can ask for a form to complete. That's the most popular way that students participate, is to say, I want to be in teammates. Or they may see a friend meeting with their mentor over the lunch hour. I want one of those people so that I can meet with someone 20, 30 minutes a week. Second way is for a parent or a guardian to refer a student. at all of our buildings, we have a facilitator or building coordinator that is the point of contact. They can, get information from that person, but the student always has to say yes. So when that parent or their guardian completes that application, that student has to be willing to have a mentor. And then the third, a teacher, a counselor, someone from the school can refer a student to say, I feel that he or she would really benefit from having an additional caring adult in their life. And then the information goes on to the parent. So 3 ways. Being inclusive simply really means to meet the needs of every student where they're at. And we've been, as I mentioned, we served over 45,000 students since 1991 from different backgrounds, different experiences. And when we say we want to help all students reach their full potential through mentoring, maybe their full potential may become the next teacher, or maybe it's the next doctor, or maybe it's a mechanic or a farmer. We simply want to be there. And we're very, very intentional in making sure that our students are seen, they feel valued, but most importantly, that it's okay for them to be unique, which I think speaks to our last core value of being strengths-based.
That's right. And actually, I wanted to talk to Tom about strengths-based because I think it's so interesting how it came to be. So for people who don't know what strengths are, they were founded by Dr. Don Clifton. And it's basically it's psychologically tested that you have 34 strengths in you, but you have your top 5, your top 5 that are uniquely awesome to you. For instance, mine are positivity, woo, activator, restorative, and empathy. And one thing we do with our matches is we give them the opportunity to have strengths-based conversations to learn maybe what their top 5 are, or maybe just learn a little bit more about their innate talents that make them unique. So Tom, tell us about your relationship with Dr. Don Clifton.
Well, when I went to graduate school here at the university, Don was a professor in the ed psych department, and at that time there was sort of 2 schools of thought. There were the hardcore experimentalists, where you started to figure out why a rat would turn right or left, why a bird would do certain things for a pellet of food. And if you couldn't weigh it or measure it in some way, it didn't count. Then on the other side, there was a phenomenological school of thought, which didn't deal much with animal research, more with people. And that was where Don was. And what he found was that insurance companies had success rate of only about 10% of people who became insurance agents really were stuck with it, were there 5 or 10 years later. And so it was very expensive for these insurance companies to train and house and prepare people, and then have only 10% succeed. So he began to devise a questionnaire that was designed to sort out those who would be successful, what traits did they have, as opposed to those who weren't successful. And so that's kind of how we started, and finally came to realize that building on strengths was really critical. And part of his thinking was he noticed in research that in the Korean War, we had the highest death rate among our prisoners of war of any war that had been fought. 38% of the prisoners ended up passing away. And in Korea, they were not tortured, they were not starved, they were not beaten, but the environment was totally negative. And so if you could inform on what somebody else did that was bad, you did that. And you were encouraged to talk about things that you weren't proud of in your own life. And so eventually that negativism got so intense that a lot of prisoners just simply laid on their bunks, turned their face to the wall, and died. And he thought, if negativism can be that powerful, then maybe the opposite, positive reinforcement, could be equally powerful. And so building on strengths, positive reinforcement became the thing he was really interested in. And so I served on his advisory board for a while, and when he started what is now Gallup, and the question was, well, this name Gallup was up for sale because the Gallup brothers were retiring, and they wanted $10 million for the name. And so there was a big debate. Finally said, yeah, okay, 10 million. At that time, it was a lot of money for that company. And so Gallup certainly took off and was very influential. But anyway, what we try to do is identify strengths in our young people. And so many of them aren't aware that they have any strengths. And they quite often aren't aware that they have more than one. And so we find that's very enlightening. And if we can reinforce those strengths and build on those strengths, it was true for players, football players. It was certainly true in mentoring. And so Teammates is basically a strength-based program. And we're not interested in running people down. We're not interested in making them feel bad about their shortcomings, but rather focus on things they do well. And also how they can reach those goals and how they can put those strengths in action.
And it does work, I will say. Like, this isn't your typical BuzzFeed quiz or, like a quiz you'd take in a magazine. Like, this is a scientifically proven assessment that works. And the thing I love most is how I've been able to communicate with my mentee about her strengths. So, and this is my first mentee. We've been together. She's a senior in high school now. When she was in 5th grade, she took the Strengths Explorer, the one that's meant for students grades 3 through 8. And one of her strengths, she had caring, presence, and discoverer. And caring means that she's not a cliquey person. She was never the kind of person who had her set of group of friends. She was always, with all the kids at the lunch table. Presence means she's been the lead in her school play 3 times in high school. And anytime she showed those strengths, I was able to say, that's your caring strength in action. That's something unique to you that not everybody does. Now that she's this high school senior, I had her take her full 34. And she and I both share the strength of restorative. And so I can kind of, relate to her when she's maybe telling me something that's going on. I'm like, that's your restorative strength in action. I see that in myself. But also, like, her, her job that she has on the side of school is she works at Hertz Donuts. And so I tell her, you'd be an excellent marketer or entrepreneur someday because you keep those people in line at Hertz Donuts. And so I'm able to have those strengths-based conversations, and she believes me more than if it was like, I'm just Hannah, like, I'm obviously always going to be pumping her up, but she believes me more because I'm telling her about a specific strength. And it's so cool to see. DeMoine, well, how have you seen strengths in action at work?
Being in this role for a year and a half and trying to establish a culture, focusing it around Gallup strengths made it easy. Instead of focusing on the things that are going wrong, shifting our attitude to focus on what's going right, making sure that all of our staff see their uniqueness and that we're all treated with respect. We just did an assessment of all of our staff, and 89% of our staff said that they are engaged, which is higher than the national average of, I think, 35 to 40%. So we as a staff, we're very strengths-based. We're all asked to serve and mentor in some way, shape, or form. I would say over 75% of our staff are mentoring, but it just really helps culture It helps performance. It helps engagement. And then most importantly, Gallup says that when you are strengths-based, that leads to hope, engagement, well-being. And all of those things are important when it comes to a student's sense of well-being and academic success, but also as an organization for sustainability, for all of us to be able to reach our full potential as a team. They say that teamwork makes the dream work. And so we are a proud organization that focuses on one's strengths and how we can lean on one another's strengths. And so far, things have been going great as a school-based mentoring program, relationship-based, but also strengths-based. And we're so happy that we added that core value at our last strat plan.
It was awesome being in that room. And the cool part is just we are able to really walk the walk and talk the talk here at Teammates. And I think that's something that's so unique to our organization as a whole. But thank you guys so much for joining me today and talking about our core values. And thank you, our listeners. Check out our social media for our mini episodes where we take a closer look into the meanings behind each of these core values. So guys, thank you so much. And next month, we will be talking about utilizing Clifton strengths in the workplace. Thank you.
I think that's important.
Stop. I'm just kidding.
Check.
Yep.
Okay.
Just use your big booming demo voice. And we all know I'm loud, so that's pretty easy.
Good job, Hannah.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry about the phone call.
Oh my gosh, no worries. You're a busy guy.